I never imagined I'd change a stranger's life until I discovered his father was a millionaire. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It began with a mundane morning. The sun broke through my dusty window, casting little golden squares on the worn-out floor. My heart raced, as it often did lately. The anxiety gripped me tightly. I was on the edge, barely holding on. In the midst of my chaotic life, I met him, Alex. I found him crouched against a grimy wall, tears trailing down his cheeks. His hands shook. I could see the raw vulnerability in his eyes, the kind of pain that gnaws at the soul. I knelt beside him, my heart pounding in sync with his trembling breaths. "What's wrong?" I whispered, my voice laced with concern. He glanced up, and in that moment, something shifted. With each word, he revealed his struggles, a family torn apart, dreams shattered, desperation bleeding into every corner of his existence. I could barely breathe as he spoke. I felt an inexplicable pull, a thread weaving between our hearts. But who was I to help? My life was no fairy tale. I was 2 months behind on rent, my phone bill overdue. Yet there was something about Alex that ignited a flicker of courage inside me. Against all reason, I offered him my friendship. Days passed, and we met often. I learned about his mother, whose laughter echoed in the background of his darkest days. He shared stories of childhood dreams marred by tragedy, a constant fear of fading into nothing. I felt his pain like it was my own, deep in my bones, and then he dropped the bombshell. "My dad's a millionaire," he said, barely a whisper. The world around me seemed to pause as my heart raced. "But he's never been there for me." My mind reeled. "Millionaire? He didn't act like one." "Wait, what do you mean?" I stammered, trying to digest the shock. Alex looked down, his expression a storm of hurt and confusion. I don't want his money. I want him." The silence that followed felt more oppressive than the weight of loss itself. But why hadn't I noticed? The old jacket he wore, the scuffed shoes, the vacant look that haunted him. There was something deeper, some hidden truth lingering like a ghost behind his eyes. Curiosity gnawed at me, pushing me to uncover the layers. And just as I was piecing everything together, a shadow loomed behind me. A figure dressed in sharp, expensive clothing, looking down at us with piercing eyes that ignited my instincts. My gut twisted. I could feel the tension thick in the air, a charged moment that demanded answers. "Alex?" the newcomer asked, voice chilling. "It's time." My breath hitched as I searched Alex's face. What did that mean? Who is this person? What was he hiding? The answer hovered just out of reach, a fragile string about to snap. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure's presence was imposing, casting a shadow that felt suffocating as I stared into the unknown depths of Alex's eyes. He looked like a cornered animal. In that brief moment, I wanted to shield him, to call upon the strength I didn't know I had. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice barely masking the tremor of fear. "Let's not make a scene, shall we?" The stranger spoke, a smirk creeping onto his face like a vice tightening around Alex's heart. "You don't want to cause trouble, Alex. It's time to go home." "Home?" Alex echoed, his voice cracking like glass. "This isn't home. You've never even tried to be there for me." The tension was electric, and as his words reverberated in the air, the world around us paused, holding its breath. I could sense that the past was about to erupt, like a dam waiting to break. "Enough," the stranger snapped, his tone barely concealing irritation. "You know how this works. Your mother's gone, the courts don't want your money. Or whatever it is you think you can buy me with." Alex shot back, anger igniting his voice with fire. The hurt welled up behind his words, revealing the desperation he had buried deep inside. Before I could intervene, the stranger stepped closer, invading Alex's personal space, fresh resentment sparking in the air. You think this is about you being a martyr? You think they care about your feelings? Think again. You're nothing without us. The sting of his words etched itself across my heart as I watched Alex's resolve shatter. I saw the flicker of defiance in his eyes waver, replaced by a deep-seated sorrow that clenched my chest. Let him go, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, but inside, my heart pounded with dread. Whatever you want, just don't take him, please. For a moment, the stranger's face hardened, his expression dismissive. But then an unexpected shadow of uncertainty flickered across his features. You think I care about what you want? He scoffed, but I could see the faintest crack in his facade. Alex took a ragged breath, gathering himself like a frayed thread, his gaze fixing firmly on me. Please, don't worry about me, he said slowly, each word deliberate as he tried to reassure me. It's just business, it'll be over soon. My stomach twisted at the implications, but before I could voice my concerns, his eyes darted towards the stranger. You don't have to do this, he implored, vulnerability seeping into his tone, mingling with anger and desperation. Trust me. You'll thank me later, the stranger replied, as he straightened his jacket, as though this was a casual negotiation instead of an emotional family betrayal. With an aching heart, I watched helplessly as Alex's shoulders slumped, the spark in his eyes dimming. Behind the husks of unfulfilled dreams and stifled hope, I could sense fear creeping in. I reached out, instinctively reaching for him, only to realize the distance between us felt insurmountable. Just a second. I called out, and their heads turned, surprised by my sudden burst of courage. You don't have to take him. Please, what if he leaves? What if he needs the stranger's cold stare silenced my plea, but I pushed on, anguish spilling from my voice. He needs more than this. He deserves to be heard. My words hung in the air, trembling like leaves in an uncertain wind. Alex's eyes reflected the tumult of emotions churning within him, apprehension, bewilderment, longing for an escape from this chaos that suffocated him like a storm cloud. The moment stretched, both of us hanging on the precipice, waiting for something, anything. My heart ached for him, the weight of the world heavy between us. Finally, the stranger spoke. This is your last chance to reconcile. Come with me, Alex, or I'll do it without you. Alex faltered, uncertainty flitting across his face. But just then, as the skies gathered with the promise of rain, a small child appeared from the corner of the street, holding a bright yellow flower, beaming innocently. Look! The child called, completely oblivious to the tension surrounding Alex and the menacing stranger. I found this for you. The flower, bright as sunshine. Against the dark backdrop of our troubled reality was a small flicker of hope. I saw Alex's eyes soften, a glimpse of tenderness breaking through. See? The child chirped. You're not alone, but the moment was shattered as the stranger's voice cut through like glass. We're leaving. Just like that, the child's innocent offering faded, and in its place, I felt the looming dread return, twisting tighter around Alex's heart. No, I shouted, desperate. Don't go. You don't have to, but with one last pleading glance, Alex turned, and the light in his eyes faded, swallowed by a forced march towards uncertainty. I felt as though my heart was being ripped from my chest. And in that moment, just as they turned the corner, a gust of wind sent the yellow flower spiraling through the air, landing softly at my feet, a reminder that, even amidst despair, beauty could stir hope's quiet embers. Yet, as the flower lay there, I was left grappling with the realization I would have to face the aftermath of their departure alone, besieged by uncertainty and fear. I could only wait for the day Alex might find the strength and the will to fight for his own future, while my heart ached at the thought of what lay ahead on both our journeys. The echoes of Alex's departure lingered in my mind, a haunting melody of lost chances and shattered dreams. Days turned into weeks, each moment dragging along like an anchor pulling me deeper into the depths of despair. I often found myself wandering the streets, searching for remnants of that day, the child, the flower, the spark of hope that had flickered so brightly only to be extinguished in an instant. Staring at the bright yellow bloom, Now a wilting testament to both fragility and resilience, I gathered the courage to change its fate. I took it home, planting it in a tiny pot on my windowsill, a living reminder that sometimes hope emerges in the most unexpected forms. I watered it diligently, watching it struggle and thrive, much like Alex, hoping against hope that he'd find his strength too. But on the outside, life moved on. Work consumed my days, my colleagues oblivious to the tempest of emotions I grappled with. I wore a mask of normalcy, greeting people with a smile that felt more like a mask, covering the pain I fought to keep at bay. Each night, I sat by the window, watching the world transform into shadows and silence, thinking of Alex, who he might be, where he might be, and if he was safe. Then one evening, while cleaning out an old drawer, I stumbled upon an untouched letter sealed with an elegant wax stamp. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal, revealing a letter from an old acquaintance, someone who once held a distant place in Alex's life. The words unfurled like a narrative of interconnected fates, revealing how a distant family member, a grandmother, had left behind a substantial fortune. The letter asked for a way to contact Alex, implying that significant wealth awaited, but only if he could be located. My heart raced at the implications. Could this be the lifeline he needed? Would this change everything? But with the fortune came strings, the wayward whispers of a family he scarcely knew. Visions of Alex caught in the throes of manipulation and expectations swept through my mind. They could just as easily trap him in a gilded cage. I debated my next steps, torn between wanting him to have the support he needed and fearing for what that support would require. Late at night, I tossed and turned, hopes and worries intertwining like vines around my soul. I'd have to find him. I owed it to Alex to uncover this hidden piece of his life, to bridge the chasm opened by that stranger. After countless attempts to reach out through missing persons ads and social media, one of my messages struck a chord. A reply, short and filled with uncertainty, revealed the contact of a friend who had fallen out of touch with him. "He's been staying with me, but he's not okay." I felt a pang of relief mixed with dread. Alex was alive, but my heart raced still, sensing that the darkness had not let him go. This friend, Elijah, offered to meet, and despite the whirlwind emotions within me, I felt I had no choice but to confront this fear. The small cafe we chose was nestled between bustling streets and quiet alleys, a world of chaos outside while solace hummed within. As I entered, the chime of the doorbell signaled my arrival, and my gaze quickly found Elijah's figure, who seemed to carry the weight of heavy burdens mixed with hints of warmth. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice soft, but laced with a certain urgency spilling over the small table where we sat. "Is he okay?" I asked, my heart constricting as the question escaped my lips. Elijah sighed deeply. "He's struggling. It's hard to explain, but things haven't improved since that stranger took him. They've put pressure on him to comply, and after his mother's death, he feels trapped in a vicious cycle of guilt and worthlessness." Each word struck like a blow, layering my concerns over the pit of despair. "But there's a fortune waiting for him," I pressed. "Doesn't that change anything?" "It's complicated," he replied. "That fortune is tied to old family ties, expectations, and agreements. It's amazing, yes, but it's also a chain that could bind him even tighter." Hearing this hurt my heart. The path I thought would bring freedom could trap him further in the shadows. "He deserves to know." "I need him to know," I insisted, a fire ignited within me. Elijah reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. "We'll find a way. Together." Just as hope dared to flourish, a commotion erupted outside. Through the cafe's window, I caught sight of familiar figures, a face cloaked in shadows, his presence palpable. My heart plummeted as I recognized the stranger. He had returned. Something about the way he stood, the menace radiating from his very being, chilled the warmth that had begun to bloom within me. "Get down," Elijah hissed, pulling me under the table, but my mind was already racing. The stranger had found us, and I knew now I was on the precipice of a revelation that could change everything, both for Alex and for myself. A storm was brewing, and I felt it sweep through the air, whispering that the battle for hope was just beginning, and the weight of destiny pressed down on us all. The air was thick with tension, and my heart pounded in my chest as I crouched beneath the table, Elijah's hand still closed around mine. From our hidden vantage point, I could catch fleeting glimpses of the stranger through the cafe's window, his face dark with intent, a storm of emotions swirling in the depths of his eyes as he surveyed the street. "What does he want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the din of clattering mugs and low conversations around us. Elijah's expression was grave. He could be here for Alex, or worse yet, to intimidate anyone trying to help him. The undercurrent of fear in his voice mirrored my own uncertainty. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as we continued to watch the stranger's every move. He scanned the crowd like a predator seeking out prey, and I felt a chill race down my spine. I had come to this cafe for answers, but the shadows looming outside whispered of danger instead. Once more I steeled myself, my thoughts racing like wild horses in my mind. "We need to find Alex," I said suddenly, the urge for action pushing through the icy grip of fear. "Are you sure?" Elijah asked, his eyes narrowing in concern. "We don't know what he's capable of." "He's not the one we should be afraid of," I replied, my voice gaining strength with each word. "If the fortune lies in the legacy of family he barely knows, then this man is simply a reminder of all the chains that could bind him." Elijah's grip softened, and a flicker of understanding passed between us. "All right," he said, rising slowly as I followed suit. "But if it gets dangerous, we retreat." As we stepped outside, the stranger's figure turned our way, and the moment our eyes met, I felt a jolt of electricity dance along my skin. There was something eerily familiar about him, an echo of a past I couldn't quite place. My heart thudded with an instinctual urge to flee, but I forced myself to stand my ground. "Who are you?" I called out, summoning as much bravado as I could muster. "What do you want with Alex?" His gaze hardened, and for a split second, a shadow flickered across his face, one that didn't fit the hardened exterior. "You should go home," he replied, his voice low and threatening. "This doesn't concern you." Elijah stepped protectively closer to me, his presence a reminder that I was not alone in this fight. "If it involves Alex, it concerns us all," he countered, his tone unyielding. The stranger's lips curled into a cruel, smiley and unnerving expression that sent an avalanche of dread swirling in my stomach. "You have no idea what you're getting into," he warned, and for a moment, the air around us crackled with the weight of unspoken words. Before I could gather my thoughts, the stranger turned, vanishing into the crowd like a wisp of smoke, leaving behind a path of unease that clung to the air. "What was that?" I asked, bewildered. Elijah shook his head, a mix of anger and fear etched into his features. "I don't know, but I feel like we've stirred a hornet's nest." We stood there for a moment, the reality of our situation settling heavily within me. "We need to find Alex. He needs to understand what he's up against," I insisted, fueled by the urgency of our encounter. "Elijah, wait." A voice called from the street, drawing our attention. I turned to find a figure rushing toward us, chest heaving and eyes wide with determination. It was another friend of Alex, someone I had only heard of in passing. "You're looking for Alex, right? You need to see this." He thrust a crumpled envelope toward me, his hands trembling with the fervor of urgency. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing as I took the envelope and ripped it open. Inside lay a stack of photographs, each one capturing moments of laughter, sorrow, and perhaps a hint of desperation. They were of Alex, but in the company of the stranger, who loomed over him like a dark cloud. "What? Why did you not tell me?" I whispered, my pulse quickening. "Is that who has been with him?" "He was taking advantage of Alex, while keeping him tethered to that past. He's dangerous," the friend replied, his voice shaking. "But you have to understand that while the money may seem like a blessing, that man's interest isn't altruistic. Alex isn't just caught up in a family fortune. He's caught in a web of exploitation." As the weight of this new information washed over me, I felt a flicker of hope within the shadows. Maybe we could find a way to break those chains. But then, out of nowhere, the stranger reappeared at the edge of the cafe, an unsettling grin plastered across his face, a dark satisfaction in his eyes. "You're too late," he called, his voice dripping with malice. "You should have listened when you had the chance." A chill raced down my spine as the gravity of his words sank in. In the depths of the night, I felt the culmination of our challenges looming like a final act of a tragic play. The clock was ticking, and if we didn't act soon, the chance to save Alex could slip through our fingers forever. With the photographs still clutched tightly in my hand, I turned to Elijah, determination ignited in my gaze. We're not giving up on him. Not now. And, just like that, with danger lurking around every corner, I knew we were on the edge of a dark abyss where secrets lay buried, waiting to be uncovered. Would we emerge as champions in Alex's battle, or would we become lost in the twist of fate that threatened to consume us all? As I stood, frozen by the stranger's taunting words, the air grew thick with an impending storm. My heart raced, each beat a reminder that the fragile thread connecting me to Alex was fraying. I could see in Elijah's eyes the same fear that gripped Muhat if we were too late. What if Alex was already caught in the snare of his own birthright, paying the price for a past that was not even his own? The stranger lingered on the outskirts of the cafe, his silhouette sharp against the dull glow of street lamps, like a looming shadow waiting to pounce. You think you can save him? He sneered. You have no idea what you're up against. I took a tentative step forward, anchored by the courage ignited within me after seeing the photographs. Let him go. My voice wavered but remained steady, defying the chokehold of fear. You don't have to do this. His laughter sliced through the air like glass. But I do. He's tied to my legacy now, and he can't escape it. You don't even understand the consequences of your interference. Elijah moved to shield me, his posture protective. You're wrong if you think we'll back down. We won't let you manipulate him any longer. For a fleeting second, I saw something shift within the stranger, the mask of menace cracking, revealing a depth of pain layered beneath. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced once more by arrogance. You think your defiance means something? There are forces in play far beyond your comprehension. My mind reeled. What could possibly be so significant about Alex's past? What had this man lost that was so irrevocably tied to him? Losing myself in contemplation, I barely noticed the crowd around us beginning to disperse. Those who had been witnesses to our confrontation were now shadows slipping into the night, leaving us isolate an island amid dereliction. Listen, I said, my tone imploring as an idea began to form. What if we could work together? There may be a way to resolve this without conflict. You know that holding Alex against his will isn't going to end well for either of you. His gaze narrowed, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he hadn't thought things through to their inevitable conclusion. But before he could respond, a frantic shout came from down the street. Alex! It was Sarah, one of Alex's closest friends, running toward us, panic etched across her features. He's gone. He disappeared. A bolt of ice gripped my heart as dread slithered through me. What do you mean, gone? I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of impending loss thudding in my chest. We were trying to bring him home, but he just vanished. I swear I turned my back for a moment, and now. Her words splintered off into labored breaths. The stranger's expression took a sharp turn, an unfamiliar vulnerability flickering behind his confident front. This isn't what I wanted, he said suddenly, almost to himself. The cracks in his facade were widening, allowing glimpses of the turmoil swirling beneath. Elijah, we have to find him now, I said, urgency gripping my voice like a vice. Before it's too late. No, the stranger interrupted, his tone surprisingly earnest. You don't understand. If Alex is missing, it may not be by choice. He could be running straight into a trap. A wave of confusion hit me. Was he warning us out of a sense of obligation, or was it a last-ditch effort to keep control of a situation that had spiraled from his grasp? What do you know? I pressed. How do you know he might be in danger? He clenched his jaw, his expression hardened once more by indecision. Because I have been tracking those who want to claim him, those who view him as nothing more than an inheritance to be exploited. He spat back, a hint of anger suffusing his voice. Instinctively, I found myself torn between siding with Elijah and trusting this unlikely ally. If you're telling the truth, then help us. I pleaded, the weight of our shared concern battling against the remnants of doubt in my mind. You know this world better than we do. We need information. In the blink of an eye, his expression shifted. Maybe there was something redeemable in him after all, something that could not merely be summed up by the easy label of villain. "You don't know what you're asking for," he warned, his voice low, yet threaded with something else, raw desperation. But before we could negotiate further, the thread of time pressed on us with gallant cold fingers. "Elijah, we have to make a decision fast. If he's declared lost, we may never get the chance to save him." The stranger fell silent. In that stillness, a strange bond tethered user mutual desire to protect Alex transcended our differences. Perhaps within our conflict lay a shared understanding that would compel us forward. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, slicing through our tension. She fished it out and immediately went pale, the color draining from her face. "It's a message from him. He's in trouble, sent his location." My chest tightened. "Where?" I demanded. Sarah's finger quivered as she read aloud, "Stranded at the old mill. They're coming for me." Panic surged. We had no time for hesitation. "Let's go," I shouted, adrenaline racing through my veins as we rushed to the end of the street. But then, the stranger hesitated, caught between allegiance and a burden he couldn't shake. As I glanced back at him, he met my gaze, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something genuine in his eyes, and understanding that perhaps he too longed for redemption. "It'll help," he said, voice steady now. "But we must act quickly." The streets blurred around us as we ran toward the unknown, a cacophony of uncertainty swirling with every anxious heartbeat. Would we find Alex in time? Were we running into a trap set for us, or would our unlikely alliance truly lead to a breakthrough? With dread whispering promises of despair, I steeled myself for the fight ahead, aware that with every step we took, the stakes grew higher, each moment a gamble against the darkness waiting to envelop us. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of the storm, a prelude to the deeper revelations about the past that would shake our world to its core. As we sprinted through the narrow streets toward the old mill, the setting sun cast long shadows that seemed to stretch irrationally, elongating time and foreboding all at once. My breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation filled with a sense of urgency that threatened to swallow me whole. I barely registered Elijah's shoulder brushing against mine, nor did I notice the stranger trailing closely behind, his expression a mix of determination and an emotion I couldn't quite place. "Is he really at the mill?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Are we sure this isn't a trap?" "It's what he sent," I replied. "We have to trust him." As doubt lingered at the edge of my thoughts, my mind replayed the stranger's words, "They're coming for him." His ominous tone echoed like a beating drum in my ears. The closer we got, the more I felt something sinister lurking like a predator in the dark. By the time we reached the mill, the air was heavy with anticipation. It loomed before us, a forgotten relic standing in the heart of the encroaching woods, its darkened windows like vacant eyes watching our every move. I hesitated at the entrance, the trepidation gripping my heart like icy fingers. "Alex," I called, my voice trembling. "Can you hear me?" Silence answered, thickening with each passing moment. But then, unexpectedly, a flash of orange light flickered in the distance from within the mill. "That way." I pointed, dread twisting in my gut. Without waiting for a response, I bolted forward, diving into the shadow of the mill. Inside, the lower levels were drenched in dim light, with shafts of golden sun piercing through cracks in the wood. The air was stale, a tinged mix of decay and a faint, acrid smell, hinting at recent fires. "Alex," I cried again, desperation lacing my voice. Elijah moved ahead cautiously, scanning the surroundings, while Sarah and the stranger flanked closely behind me. It was eerie how easily we slipped into a formation, each of us fueled by one common goal despite our differences. Then I heard it. A muffled sound, a combination of a whimper and a scraped plea. A cold jolt of adrenaline surged through me, compelling me forward, inching me closer to the source. As I rounded a corner, I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. There he was. Alex was tied to an old, rotting beam, his face bruised and mask of anguish striking deep into my heart. "No," I whispered, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. In that moment, time unraveled. The stranger's identity, my fears, Elijah's warning, all of it faded into a singular echo of desperation for Alex's safety. I felt weighted by an overwhelming need to protect him, to reach for him even when the world around us thrummed with impending danger. "It's okay, Alex. We're here," I shouted, pushing past debris. But before we could rush to him, shadows moved at the fringes of our vision. Figures emerged from the dark, a group of ominous silhouettes stepping into the light, their intentions as obscured as their features. "Step away from him," a gravelly voice commanded, slicing through the tension like a knife. The stranger beside me stiffened, his face pale as recognition bloomed in his eyes. "It can't be," he murmured, shock laced into his tone. "What?" I asked, turning my gaze from Alex to the stranger and back to the emerging figures. But the tension enveloped us, muffling any responses. The group was well-dressed, their expensive attire contrasting sharply with the decay surrounding us. They exuded an aura of power, authority, and underlying menace. "Your time has come, boy," the gravelly voice continued, stepping into the flickering light. My heart plummeted as I realized who stood before Ushi's father's features transposed eerily onto the stranger's frame. "No." The stranger's voice was a raw edge of disbelief, a struggle against the weight of his lineage. "You're not taking him." His stance shifted as if he was preparing for a fight. Alex's eyes widened, fear mingling with confusion as he recognized the connection. "What is happening?" he asked, straining against the ropes. The flickers of hope ignited within me. Were overshadowed by the looming threat of entrapment. Despite the outline of safety forged in our alliance, the reality that Alex's past was rising to consume him filled the air with an unbearable tension. I glanced at Elijah, and then the stranger, this man who was both an enemy and possibly an ally. This collision of lives was spinning out of control, and I sensed that this confrontation was about to unravel everything we thought we understood. A small voice within suggested that perhaps, just maybe, we could turn this around. But the weight of our situation clawed at me. Every heartbeat echoed the looming catastrophe approaching. "Alex, we'll get you out, I swear." I shouted desperately, holding his gaze, willing him to believe me. But then, the gravelly voice spoke again. "This is not just about him. It's about what he represents. This legacy has been waiting for him, and you can't stop it." In an instant, everything tumbled into chaos. I took a step forward, my body acting on instinct, blinded by the desperate urge to protect. "Stop!" I cried, the piercing fear clawing at my heart. That's when we heard the creak of the old wooden beams above us, followed by a crash that reverberated through the pillar buckled beneath the weight of its own history. In that instant of chaos, the world tilted dangerously on its axis, and I realized with chilling clarity that nothing between us would ever be the same again. Secrets that had remained buried were clawing their way to the surface, and the storm I had thought was brewing outside was now the very ground beneath our feet, threatening to swallow us whole. The air in the mill thickened, the scent of dust and impending disaster merging into something almost suffocating. I felt the tremors beneath my feet, as if the very ground was protesting against the very existence of our confrontation. Alex's fearful gaze pinned me in place as the potential catastrophe threatened the fragile moment we had carved out together. "Get him out of here," I urged Elijah and Sarah, my voice breaking slightly under the weight of urgency. The last flickers of hope I held on to began to dissipate, and with every heartbeat, the risk of losing Alex became a throbbing reality. "Will you listen to yourself?" the stranger said, his face pale as the resolve in his voice shook slightly. "You don't know what's at stake. You can't just leave. We're not going anywhere until Alex is safe," I shouted back, my fists clenched against the rising tide of anxiety flooding my veins. But even as I fought to maintain my ground, a flood of adrenaline pushed me forward, and I could see Alex's ropes fraying at the edges, a glimmer of hope in his eyes as I approached. I reached for him, fingers grazing the fibers of the rough rope, and each small tear I made felt imbued with purpose. "I won't let them take you," I said, my voice trembling with fierce determination. But as I worked at the ropes, a noise broke through the tension. A low murmur of apprehension fractured the air, followed by the ground shaking again, this time accompanied by the sound of footsteps echoing from the entrance. More coming. Sarah called, her voice edged with panic. We need to hurry. Elijah moved into a protective stance, his eyes darting toward the shadows gathering and deepening. I could tell we didn't have much time left before the encroaching darkness would swallow us whole. Just then, the stranger stepped closer to us, his voice low and urgent. If we don't use the time to our advantage, we'll all end up like them. He gestured behind him, where the figures stood resolute, their forms harsh and foreboding. Use what? Your family legacy? I shot back bitterly, my breath coming faster as I wrestled the frayed rope. You think that matters right now? It does matter. The legacy can protect us if we can find a way to harmonize it. But we have to be united. His desperate plea held a sense of gravity that broke through our mutual tension, just as the echoes from the shadowy entrance grew louder. With one final tug, the rope fell away, and Alex was free, gripping my hands fiercely as shock flickered through our connection. The warmth of his fingers slipped a rebuilding moment into the whirlwind chaos. It was a brief anchor amidst the fraying threads of fate. Thank you, he breathed, the gratitude laced with urgency. The flicker of hope ignited anew within me, yet it felt precarious, as if it could be snuffed out with a whisper. But there was no time to dwell. We need to move, I said, pulling him to his feet, adrenaline fueling our actions as we turned to see how to escape this cage of cascading shadows. Just then, a cacophony of shouts erupted from the entrance as figures began charging forward, desperation and anger inscribed in their features. They were relentless, a storm catching up with us without mercy. Stay behind me, Elijah commanded, stepping protectively in front of us. Wait, I can help, the stranger exclaimed, desperation flaring in his eyes. I know their movements, I can distract them. Leave the distraction to me, Sarah interrupted, her voice suddenly firm and bright. You two get out of here. Go. What? No, we can't just leave you, I retorted, my mind racing. I can buy you a few seconds, and that's all that matters, she insisted, her resolve unwavering. You need to get Alex somewhere safe, and I'll hold them off. But I faltered, caught between two insistent paths, the urge to keep my friend safe and the unwelcome reality of leaving someone behind. With a knowing look, the stranger stepped closer. Trust her. She's more capable than any of us know. I in that moment, under the oppressive weight of choice and emotion, I understood he was right. The look in Sarah's eyes, fierce with intention, commanded me to let go of fear and trust in her strength. With trembling hands, I held Alex's shoulders, daring him to meet my gaze. We do this together. We run, and we don't look back. He nodded, unspoken understanding passing between us as we took a determined step forward. But just as we turned to flee, the ground above us began to crack, and the wooden beams creaked ominously. Now, Sarah shouted, but before we could move, the entire structure of the mill began to shudder, and a deafening roar echoed as debris started to cascade from above. In a flash, the beams above gave way, splintering with an earth-shattering sound as if the mill was fighting back against its demise. Dust surged into the air, choking the light, and in that tumultuous whirl, everything seemed suspended for a heartbeat that stretched indefinitely. Alex! I screamed, reaching for him just as the world collapsed on itself, the inevitability of fate drawing closer, threatening to bury us under the weight of every choice we had ever made. As darkness enveloped us, something snapped within me. A flicker of realization surged like lightning. The world I had known stood on an edge, ready to fall into a chasm I could never imagine. But one terrifying thought crowned its volatility. Sometimes, the echoes of a legacy could portend both doom and salvation. And as the dust settled, one question plagued everything left behind. What secrets had I uncovered, and how would they shape the lives still trembling in this vicious storm? The dust hung thick in the air, swirling around us like the chaos of emotions making up the fabric of our last moments. I could hardly breathe, my throat choked by the remnants of the collapse. Time felt suspended as I struggled to comprehend what had just happened, my hand instinctively reaching out to feel the solidity of Alex next to me. But the air was heavy, and panic started to coil like a serpent around my heart when I felt only silence where warmth should be. Alex! I gasped, pushing through the enveloping darkness. Where are you? Right here. His voice was faint but clear, and relief flared within me like a spark on dry kindling. I stumbled toward it, grasping wildly until my fingers finally found the rough fabric of his shirt. Are you okay? He replied, a hitch breaking his voice. I think so. Just a little dazed. I held him tighter, heart pounding as the sound of shuffling footsteps emerged from somewhere outside the debris. The shadows that had once felt like a threat now blended into a murky backdrop, and the thin beam of an external light broke through the cracks, illuminating what lay scattered around us. Come on, I urged, pulling him along, our bodies moving in a rhythm built from desperation. But we were trapped. The wooden supports had collapsed, leaving us ensnared within a cage of time and space, our escape blocked by fallen beams and debris. Is there another way out? Alex's voice trembled, betraying the fear creeping up into his throat. I don't know, I exclaimed, glancing around for a way forward. The shadows loomed larger, sealing us within the tomb of the mill. We have to keep looking. But as I searched the suffocating room for an exit, dread began to gnaw at the edges of my resolve. We couldn't afford to lose hope, not when Sarah had sacrificed her safety for us. If we didn't find a way out soon, it would be a decision we'd never forgive ourselves for. Listen, we need to stay calm, I said, trying to steady my voice as it cracked. If we work together, we can find a way. Together, Alex echoed, though I could hear the uncertainty lacing his words. But how? Just then, a scraping sound reached our ears, and I spun around. A sliver of hope peeked through the cracks in my chest as the stranger emerged, his body silhouetted against the glowing light. Over here, he called, relief spilling into his tone. Why are you here? I asked, my heart racing. You shouldn't have come back. I had to help you. He knelt beside us, momentarily examining the collapsed beams. We can move some of this. If we can clear just a path, the thought of escape coursed through me, yet dread gnawed at the base of my spine. What if it causes another collapse? What if we focus? He interrupted, his expression intense, almost pleading. You can't think about what might happen. We have to take the risk to find hope. Hope. The word hung in the air like a lifeline. Splinter by splinter, piece by piece, we dug ourselves out of the rubble, voices ignited by urgency. With every triumphant shove, I tried to mask the rising fear of impending disaster lurking like a wild beast starving for its next meal. But just as passage opened slightly, the cacophony of sounds grew closer. It sounded as if the very walls of the mill had awakened, shifting and groaning as more footsteps approached. They're coming, I shouted, glancing back at Alex and the stranger. Hurry, each of us put our strength into the debris, adrenaline coursing through our veins as we worked to unearth our way out. I could feel the weight of the world pressing on my chest, but with every heave, determination surged to the surface. This was our chance to escape the shadows. Almost the stranger groaned, sweat glistening on his forehead as he pushed a beam aside, revealing a dimly lit exit. Just then, a tremor rocked the ground beneath us, shaky arms reaching out to pull Alex back. My heart skipped a beat. No, get out, I yelled, shoving him forward. But with every frantic breath, despair encroached on my vision, and the mill responded like a living entity rebelling against our escape. I can't, he cried as another tremor sent cascades of dust raining down around us. Go. I screamed again, pushing him past the last stubborn remnants of our prison. Then, in a heartbeat, the entrance we had fought to uncover began to shift ominously. The stranger began to squirm through as I braced myself, but just as I reached out to pull Alex through, the ground trembled yet again, and I turned in horror to see a heavy timber swinging dangerously over our heads. No, I shouted, lunging to grab Alex's hand, but the beam crashed down before I could react, sending us tumbling back beneath the chaos, sweat mingling with the dust coating my skin as darkness rushed in once more. Let go, Alex shouted, but I could feel a sudden pull, a weight that threatened to bury us deeper into the maw of despair, and then an unexpected warmth illuminated the shadows, a hand, firm and lasting. It gripped mine resolutely, and I turned to see the stranger's face lit with emotion. Hold on. We will get through this together. In that instant, The stranger's grip fused into my determination, and just as despair threatened to envelop me, I caught a glimpse of light in the distance, a spark that ignited a flicker of hope. Memories of Sarah, Elijah, and every moment worth fighting for flashed before my eyes. But as we began to surge towards it, something shattered in the silencing echo of betrayal reverberating through the air. A voice, clear and cold as winter ice, shattered the illusion of security. You really thought you could escape this time? Everything froze. A new, darker reality crashed down around USA Truth I had never expected. The realization clawed up my throat, each word falling into my heart, wondering who was truly trying to save us and at what cost. The floor cracked, shadows loomed larger than life, and with the finality of everything I had ever feared echoing in my ears, I understood that, for better or for worse, the stranger was more entwined with our tumultuous fate than I could have ever imagined. The darkness closed in like a heavy curtain, swallowing screams and muffling even our thoughts. I grasped Alex's hand tightly, trying to tether my mind to the present while the weight of those chilling words dug into me. The stranger, the glimmer of hope, now stood obscured by the reality that he might be linked to the very threads of our despair. Who are you? I forced the question through clenched teeth, dread for Alex mingling with desperation swirling within me. The stranger's face faltered under my scrutiny, and the frame of his presence seemed to shift. My name is Leo. He met my gaze boldly, though the defiance in his eyes danced with uncertainty. My father, he's the owner of this mill. We had a falling out, but your father is a millionaire? Alex interrupted, disbelief heavy in his voice. Rich beyond measure, Leo confirmed, his jaw tightening. But that's not why I'm here. Please, I wanted to make things right. To destroy this place that has taken so much from others, including my old friends. Then why do you seem so caught up in this? I shot back, anger squeezing my chest. You could have just walked away. In trying to help, he pleaded, desperation cracking through his voice like the wood beneath us. I want to fix the damage my family has done. I couldn't stand by. Not anymore. An echo filled the room, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. What was true anymore? His sudden declaration felt like shards of ice melting into indifference. I looked at Alex, seeing the same flicker of uncertainty reflected in his eyes. Can you help us survive? I asked, the urgency in my voice pulling both men's attention toward me. Leo stepped closer, his expression morphing into one of resolve. If you trust me, I can get you out. But it's going to be dangerous. I can't guarantee my father won't try to stop us. I glanced at Alex. His grip in my hand tightened, and I could see the whirlwind of emotions swirling across his face. Fear, distrust, and an unwillingness to make the choice that held our lives in the balance. Is there truly no other way? He asked finally, his voice barely rising above the suffocating silence surrounding us. Leo inhaled deeply, clearly weighing every single word before uttering them. This place isn't just a mill, it's a trap. It's hiding secrets no one should have to bear. If we don't leave now, we may never get the chance again. Then let's get out. Alex exclaimed, a hint of newfound hope lighting his eyes. But just then, the floor grumbled ominously beneath us, vibrating like an angered beast ready to swallow us whole. No, Leo urged, and without waiting for further discussion, he plunged toward an even darker corner of the room, his determination cutting through the dust like a knife. We followed, every instinct screaming at me to hesitate. I didn't know anything about Leo beyond the blurring lines of his story, yet I didn't have the luxury of doubt now. I had to trust him if we wanted any chance of escaping this nightmare. The ground continued to shake beneath our feet as we navigated through the shadowed path, crawling over debris and dodging falling fragments. But the deeper we went, the harder it became to breathe, the scent of betrayal lingering in the air. Inside, a small glimmer of light danced on the edges of our vision. More than just an escape, it felt like a fragile promise of closure to everything I had lost. Keep moving, Leo shouted, his urgency electrifying the air around us. But as we inched closer to that flickering hope, I caught sight of something glinting on the ground, a shattered glass shard. My gut twisted, recognizing the reflection as something significant. Terror crashed against me as a chilling thought surged in. What if this man, tied to a lineage steeped in destruction, was leading us to another trap? The prick of betrayal resurfaced like bitter ink, staining my pulse with doubts. Are you sure you can trust him? My voice trembled as I pulled back slightly, fear gripping me once more. Lex. Alex's plea broke through my spiraling thoughts. The worry etched across his face, sending a wave of guilt over me. I don't know. If he's truly here to help us, or if he's playing some bigger game, I whispered, desperately seeking reassurance. Leo turned, frustration etched across his brow. This isn't about me, it's about getting out. I know this place better than anyone. If you think standing still will safeguard your lives, you're gravely mistaken. Suddenly, a loud crack erupted around us, sending dust and wood fragments flying, covering us like ash in a funeral. Leo's gaze hardened, a mask of determination cloaking the vulnerability beneath. You have to decide now. Just as an answer slipped off my lips, a loud boom reverberated through the mill, shaking us to our core. I turned instinctively to Alex, who was already midway into an unrelenting struggle against our rapidly diminishing options. Alex, stay with me. I shouted, panic rising as I grasped his hand tighter, but before I could pull him closer, the sound of footsteps echoed ominously outside the force crashing through the hidden corners of our sanctuary. His eyes mirrored the same fear I held. Stay close, I urged, but we were already being swept away by the chaos. At that moment, in the midst of the brewing storm, the last thing I saw before the darkness reclaimed us was another glimmer off that shard, a hint of the past that echoed like a ghost in my mind, reflecting a burgeoning truth that tied us all together in a web of fate, deception, and the fragments that lingered all around us. As the world spun back into the obsidian night, the very fabric of our reality was rewritten. We hadn't just stumbled into a fight for survival. We were teetering on the brink of unearthing secrets that could either shatter or bind us forever. I awoke to the echoes of distant murmurs, the sensation of cool air brushing against my skin, and the weight of darkness pulling me back down. The world felt fragile, shifting like dust settling in the aftermath of a storm. My heart thudded painfully as reality clawed at my mind. Where was Alex? And what had happened to us in the mill? I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the dim light that crept in. I was lying on a cold surface, the remnants of the chaos from before swirling in my thoughts. Instinctively, I called out, voice hoarse and raw with fear, Alex. A figure emerged from the shadows, and relief washed over me as I saw Leo step into the light. You're awake, he stated, a mix of urgency and something softer behind his eyes. You've been unconscious for a while. Where's Alex? My voice trembled as I sat up, the ache of reality piercing through the fog in my mind. He's okay, Leo assured me quickly, but the way he spoke felt like a repair hiding a fracture. He's outside, we need to keep moving. And more questions lingered. My stomach churned as the urgency propelled me forward. I stumbled, pushing myself to stand, and Leo reached out to steady me. Focus. We need to get far from here. Your friend Sarah, she hesitated, dark memories cloaking his features. They won't stop until they find us. I could hardly process the implications of his words. Sarah, had she made it out? Had she escaped the wreckage we had left behind? The questions crowded my mind like shadows, swirling relentlessly, but Leo's determined gaze cut through the chaos. Come on, he urged, drawing me forward. We navigated through the remnants of the mill, the air thick with the scent of decay, and I felt the shadows closing in behind us. My heart raced as we exited out into the daylight. The sun was a sharp edge against the drama of the night, yet the warmth did nothing to ease the chill creeping in from the unknown. As we stepped outside, the true weight of our situation pressed down on me. A narrow path stretched before us, running toward a cluster of trees swaying gently in the wind. I could see Alex ahead, stationed against a tree, but something in his posture made my heart lurch. Attention, a fear lingering like an unwelcome specter. Alex, I shouted, relief flooding my voice as I rushed toward him. But he turned suddenly, desperate eyes reflecting more than just the surface of our entangled past. Stay back, he warned, and I halted in my tracks, confusion knitting together with worry. Wait, what's happening? I asked, my heart racing, and as I looked between Leo and Alex, shadows crept forward in the corners of my vision. The memories of the mill surged back fiercely, as moments of desperation replayed like a sickening film. "I am fine," Alex replied, but the tremor in his voice belied his bravado. "We need to leave, but they're coming," Leo finished, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They won't let us go easily." Suddenly, a rustling noise broke the silence around us, drawing close much too quickly. The air grew thicker, and apprehension twined tight around my throat. "What do we do?" I demanded, my mind racing against the looming threat. "We need a plan," Leo replied, glancing around as shadows began to loom larger on the path behind us. "We can't run blindly. If we split up, they might not pursue all of us. It'll give us a fighting chance." "Are you serious?" I exclaimed. "You think that's a good idea?" "Yeah," Alex interjected, his voice trembling slightly but laced with a determination I admired. "We're not going to die here. We need to move, even if it means dividing." A chill swept through me, twisting my heart into knots. I thought of Sarah and everything we had fought for. Whatever fate had in store, we needed to break free from the remnants of our horrors. "Okay," I pressed, my heart racing. "Let's do it." We hastily discussed our plan. The ground trembled beneath our feet, a grim reminder that time was running out. The shadows loomed even closer now, a dark wave threatening to swallow us whole. "It'll create a diversion," Leo said, his eyes fierce with determination like sunlight breaking through a storm. "You go east along the river while I draw them away. They'll follow me. It'll buy you time to escape." "Leo, don't," Alex urged, his voice cracking. But Leo's expression hardened, portraying a resolve far deeper than mere words. "I can't let them have either of you." "Not after everything." "What if I began?" But Leo interrupted, cutting through the uncertainty like a blade. "There's no time. Promise me you'll keep running." With heavy hearts, we exchanged glances, feeling the weight of unsaid words suffocating our final goodbyes. "We will find you," I whispered, my voice breaking slightly. As we parted ways, the world fractured, and I could only hope that fate would bind us again. We ran, and adrenaline coursed through my veins like wildfire. The dense tree line enveloped us, shielding us from the world behind. The police were scouring the outskirts, desperate but oblivious to the truth lurking among the shadows. "Are they still following?" Alex gasped between breaths as we crept cautiously along the river's edge, bodies low, hearts racing. "I don't see anyone," I replied, peering into the distance, but the echo of every twig snapping told me danger still lurked too close. Time flowed thick, each movement a heartbeat of uncertainty, and as we pressed further into the woods, my heart twisted with a need for answers. Why had Leo chosen that moment for his sacrifice? And what consequences awaited him after our paths twisted apart? As we reached a small clearing, we paused, both breathing heavily, shadows painting the ground in swirls of ethereal grief. My heart pounded, time disappeared, and I could feel the tether between us stretching, threatening to snap. "What now?" Alex murmured, glancing around as uncertainty settled like mist. Before I could respond, a rustling sound broke from the trees on our left. A tall, thin figure stepped from the foliage. Everything went quiet as recognition settled deep within my soul, striking my heart with an understanding that reverberated through time. "Sarah?" I whispered, disbelief washing over me. "Lex." "Alex," she called, relief coloring her voice. "I thought I lost you. You have to come with me, they're close." Dread mixed with that relief as Sarah pulled us forward, guiding us deeper into the safety of the shadows, away from the growing danger that pressed on the edge of our survival. With every hurried step, I reflected momentarily on Leo's bravery, the stranger who had unexpectedly become intertwined with our very fates. The darkness behind us would always remain a haunting tether, but I could feel the promise of home beneath the surface. We reached the edge of the woods, where blinding sunlight poured through the branches. As we pushed forward, a sense of both dread and hope filled my heart. In that moment, I understood that we were not just running away from the past, but racing toward a future bound by the threads connecting us amid turmoil. We emerged at the top of a hill, overlooking a winding Rivera path forward stretching out before us. As we gazed across the landscape, our hearts intertwined. We knew the journey had just begun, even if shadows of the past lingered close. And then hope swelled within me like a dawning sun on the horizon. For Alex, for Leo, for Sarah. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Let's go, I said, taking the first step forward, our bond stronger than any shadow that dared to follow us. The road was uncertain, but perhaps, hidden beneath the weight of all we had lost, was the chance for redemption, healing, and a reunion that could reshape not just our lives, but perhaps even the legacy left behind. Because in the end, we were never truly strangers to one another. The ties we forged, the battles we faced, and the love we discovered bridged the darkness residing within. And with that, I knew we would fight to reclaim what was ours. Not just our lives, but the pieces of hope that whispered against the chaos, like soft embers flickering through the night. Together, we would weave our story anew across sunlit routes, through twisted paths, and into a future teeming with infinite possibilities.